Parents gave my startup fund to my sister's fourth wedding because she needs it more. I sued, lost everything, but now she's already divorced again and begging me for forgiveness. Hey Reddit, buckle up because this is going to be a wild ride through decades of family dysfunction, financial betrayal, and the most predictable divorce you've ever heard of. I'm talking about the kind of story that makes you want to throw your phone across the room, except you can't, because you need to keep reading to see how spectacularly everything implodes. I'm a 35-year-old guy who spent the better part of a decade building something from nothing, only to watch my parents hand my life savings to my sister for her fourth wedding, to another loser who everyone except her could see was trash from a mile away. And now? Now she's divorced again, broke, and suddenly I'm the family hero she needs to rescue her. Spoiler alert, that's not happening. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me paint you the full picture of the dysfunction I grew up in. Because without context, you might actually think I'm the asshole here. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why I don't lose a second of sleep over what happened to my sister and parents. My sister Victoria, let's call her Vicky because that's what she insists everyone call her, like she's some kind of celebrity, is 3 years older than me. From the moment I could form memories, it was obvious who the favorite was. I'm not talking about subtle preference here. I'm talking about Vicky gets a new car for her 16th birthday, while I get a used bike from Craigslist level favoritism. When Vicky wanted to go to an expensive private college for communications, basically a degree in being social, my parents took out a second mortgage, $180,000 over 4 years, and she graduated with a 2.4 GPA and zero job prospects. When I wanted to go to community college to study business and accounting, they told me I should get loans like a normal person, because they couldn't afford to help me. I was 18 and standing in the kitchen when my dad literally said, "Your sister needed the investment more. You'll figure it out." That became their catchphrase for everything. Vicky needs it more. Vicky's going through something. Vicky deserves this. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs through community college, transferred to a state school, graduated with a 3.8 GPA, and had a job lined up before I even got my diploma. My reward? A text message that said congrats and an Olive Garden gift card my mom regifted from her work Secret Santa. Vicky, on the other hand, moved back home after college and lived rent-free for 2 years while finding herself, which apparently meant going to expensive yoga classes and dating every trust fund bro in a 50-mile radius. She got an entry-level marketing job that paid $35,000 a year and acted like she was running Fortune 500 companies. She'd come home complaining about her boss not recognizing her genius, and my parents would pat her hand and tell her she was too good for that place anyway. I was living in a studio apartment the size of a shoebox, eating ramen for dinner so I could save money, and nobody gave a single shit. If I mentioned I was struggling, my mom would hit me with, "Well, you wanted to be independent. This is what that looks like." But when Vicky needed help with her car insurance, Dad covered it without blinking. When she wanted to take a girls' trip to Miami, Mom pitched in $800 because she works so hard and deserves a break. The double standards were so blatant that even extended family started noticing. My uncle pulled me aside at a family reunion once and asked if my parents treated me differently. I just shrugged and said I was used to it. He looked genuinely sad for me, but what was I supposed to do? Make a scene? I'd learned early that complaining about Vicky just made me look jealous and petty in my parents' eyes. Here's where it gets really fun. Vicky got married for the first time when she was 24. Met some guy named Brad at a rooftop bar, dated him for 6 months, got engaged after 3. Brad was an entrepreneur, which meant he had a lot of ideas and zero follow-through. My parents spent $40,000 on that wedding. $40,000. Open bar, string quartet, designer dress, the whole production. They had it at a vineyard 2 hours away and invited 200 people. I was in my second year of working full-time and finishing my degree at night. I couldn't afford to take time off work for the 3-day wedding weekend they'd planned, so I came for the ceremony and left right after. Vicky was pissed and didn't talk to me for 2 months. My mom called me selfish for not being there for my sister's special day. Never mind that I was drowning in student loans and working 60-hour weeks. That marriage lasted 18 months. Turns out Brad was cheating on her with a yoga instructor. Shocking to literally no one except Vicky. She came home crying, moved back into my parents' house, and got the full sympathy tour. They paid for her divorce lawyer, $8,500. They covered her therapy, another $3,000 over 6 months. They bought her a new wardrobe to help her feel confident again, probably another $2,000. I kept a running total in my head because the disparity was so insane. Wedding number 2 came when Vicky was 27. This time it was Marcus, a personal trainer she met at her gym. Marcus was actually a decent guy, or so I thought. My parents only spent $25,000 on this wedding because Vicky wanted something more intimate. That marriage lasted 2 years. Divorce reason? They grew apart. Translation? Vicky got bored. Divorce number 2 cost my parents another $6,000 in legal fees, plus they helped her get a new apartment because she couldn't afford the rent on her own. Security deposit, first and last month, plus furniture? Probably another $5,000. I'm 28 at this point, and I've saved $40,000 living like a monk in a one-bedroom apartment, driving a 12-year-old Honda Civic, and bringing my lunch to work every day. I haven't taken a real vacation in 5 years. I shop at thrift stores. I cut my own hair in my bathroom mirror because barbershops cost money. But I'm building something. I'm working towards something bigger. Wedding number 3 happened when Vicky was 30. She met Tyler on a dating app. Tyler worked in crypto, which meant he talked about Bitcoin at parties and had no actual income. I tried to warn her. I actually sat her down and showed her red flags I'd researched about Tyler's business ventures. She called me jealous and told our parents I was trying to sabotage her happiness. My parents sided with her, obviously. Dropped another $30,000 on wedding number 3. This time I was specifically uninvited because Vicky said my negative energy would ruin her special day. My mom called to tell me and actually said, maybe it's better this way. You never seem happy at these events anyway. That marriage lasted 15 months before Tyler's crypto investment firm, surprise, turned out to be a scam that cost several people their savings. He fled the state to avoid lawsuits. Vicky filed for divorce, moved back home again, and guess who paid for divorce attorney number 3? At this point, my parents had spent over $100,000 on Vicky's weddings and divorces. I'd received exactly $0 in support for anything. Not business school, not when my car died, not when I had a medical emergency and needed to cover my deductible. Nothing. Ever. While Vicky was on her merry-go-round of marriages and disasters, I was building an actual life. After graduating, I worked in corporate accounting for 5 years, hating every second but learning everything I could about business finance, market analysis, and startup funding. I watched other people build companies and thought, I could do this better. I started freelance consulting on weekends, helping small businesses organize their finances and plan growth strategies. Word spread. I was good at it. Really good. Business owners would hire me to come in, audit their operations, and give them a roadmap for profitability. I charged reasonable rates, worked my ass off, and built a reputation for actually delivering results. By age 32, I had saved $85,000 specifically for starting my own consulting firm. Not just freelancing out of my apartment, but a real company with an office, employees, and the infrastructure to take on bigger clients. I'd already secured 2 anchor clients who'd commit to year-long contracts the day I opened my doors. I had a business plan. I had projections. I had everything lined up. I was going to call it Apex Financial Consulting. I'd already registered the LLC. I had a lease ready to sign on a small office space. I'd interviewed 3 potential employees. I'd designed a website, created marketing materials, set up the business bank accounts. This was happening. After years of grinding, after watching my sister piss away money on fantasy weddings while I ate ramen and walked to work to save gas money, I was finally going to have something that was mine. The $85,000 was sitting in a high-yield savings account I'd opened specifically for this purpose. I didn't tell my parents the full amount because I'd learned long ago that any success I had just became a reason for them to ask for money or tell me I should help Vicky out. I kept my cards close to my chest, but I made one critical mistake. One stupid, naive, trusting mistake that would destroy everything. I told my parents I was close to opening my business. I told them I'd saved enough and was planning to launch in 3 months. I even showed them the office space. I was excited, and like an idiot, I wanted them to be excited for me too. I wanted one moment, just one, where they looked at me with the same pride they showed Vicky when she picked out floral arrangements for wedding number 2. My dad nodded and said, "That's ambitious. Have you thought about what happens if it fails?" My mom said, "Don't forget to be realistic about these things. Most small businesses fail in the first year. That should have been my warning sign." 2 weeks after I told my parents about my business plans, Vicky announced she'd met someone new. His name was Derek. She'd known him for 6 weeks. Derek was a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. Finally, someone with an actual job and a steady income. My parents were thrilled. "This one seems different," my mom kept saying. "I met Derek once. He seemed fine. Normal guy. Decent job, a little boring. But compared to crypto scammer Tyler and unemployed entrepreneur Brad, boring seemed like a massive upgrade. I honestly hoped it would work out because maybe, just maybe, if Vicky was finally settled and happy, my parents would stop throwing money at her and treating me like an afterthought. Then came the engagement. 6 weeks of dating, and Derek proposed with a ring that probably cost more than my car. Vicky posted it all over social media with the caption, "Fourth time's the charm." When you know, the comments were brutal. Her high school friends were posting congrats, but you could feel the side-eye through the screen. One person literally commented, "Girl, take your time this go-around." Vicky deleted it within an hour. The wedding planning started immediately, and this time, Vicky wanted to go all out. She'd learned from her past mistakes and wanted a wedding that reflected her growth as a person. Translation: she wanted the most expensive wedding yet to prove this marriage was different from the others. The initial budget was $60,000. My parents sat me down at a family dinner to tell me about it. They seemed nervous, which should have been another red flag, but I was distracted by the shrimp scampi my mom had made. She only made that dish for special occasions or when she wanted something. Vicky's really found the right one this time, Dad started. Derek's a good man with a stable career. They're going to build a real life together. I nodded, eating my shrimp, waiting for whatever favor they were about to ask. The wedding's going to be expensive, Mom continued, but it's important to Vicky. After everything she's been through, she deserves to have the wedding of her dreams. I wanted to point out that she'd already had 3 weddings, and each one had been described as the wedding of her dreams. But I kept my mouth shut. Then came the hammer. "We don't have the money saved to cover it all," Dad said. "We've already spent so much helping Vicky get back on her feet after Tyler, and our retirement accounts are pretty tapped. We were hoping you could help out. As a wedding gift. You're doing well financially, and Vicky needs this." There it was. Vicky needs it more. I actually laughed. Not a happy laugh. A bitter, exhausted laugh. "You want me to give money for Vicky's 4th wedding? The same Vicky who uninvited me to her 3rd wedding? That's water under the bridge," Mom said quickly. "She feels terrible about that. This is a chance for you to show you support her." "How much?" I asked. They looked at each other. Dad cleared his throat. "Whatever you can contribute. Every bit helps." "Give me a number," I pressed. $15,000 would really make a difference," Mom said quietly. $15,000. Nearly 20% of my startup fund. Money I'd saved through years of sacrifice while they bankrolled Vicky's disasters. "No," I said. Dead silence. "Excuse me?" Dad's voice went cold. I said no. I'm not funding another one of Vicky's weddings. I have my own financial goals. "You're being selfish," Mom said. "Your sister is trying to build a life." "She's tried to build a life 3 times already," I shot back. "Each time cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Each time ended in divorce. I'm not subsidizing another disaster." "Derek's different," Dad insisted. "Brad was different. Marcus was different. Tyler was different. They're all different until they're not. And even if Derek is different, that doesn't make this my financial responsibility." The dinner ended badly. I left before dessert. Vicky called me from my parents' phone later that night, crying, asking how I could be so cruel. I hung up without responding. For 2 weeks, I thought that was the end of it. I thought I'd set a boundary and they'd finally respect it. I thought wrong. I should have seen it coming. I should have protected myself. But I'm an idiot who still, deep down, wanted to believe my parents weren't completely terrible people. I'd had them as authorized users on one of my accounts for years, a joint checking account we'd set up when I was 18, and they wanted to be able to transfer me money for emergencies. They never used it. The account mostly sat there with a small balance. But after I started my business fund, I'd been moving money between accounts to maximize interest, and I'd temporarily moved $50,000 into that joint account before transferring it to my business savings. I say temporarily because it was supposed to sit there for 3 business days before the final transfer went through. It was never meant to stay there. But that 3-day window was all they needed. I woke up on a Tuesday morning to a notification from my bank. Large withdrawal, $45,000. My stomach dropped. I immediately called the bank, thinking it was fraud. The woman on the other end pulled up the transaction. "The withdrawal was made by Susan Clark," she said. "She's listed as an authorized user on the account." Susan Clark, my mother. I couldn't breathe. I actually couldn't breathe for a solid minute. I asked the woman to repeat what she'd said because surely I'd misheard. But no. My mother had walked into a branch, shown her ID, and withdrew $45,000 in a cashier's check made out to herself. I called her immediately. She didn't answer. I called my dad. Didn't answer. I called Vicky. Straight to voicemail. I drove to my parents' house. They weren't home. I sat in their driveway for 3 hours before they finally showed up. When they saw me, my mother's face went pale. "Where's my money?" I didn't yell. I was eerily calm. "Shock does that to you." "Honey, we can explain," Mom started. "Where is my money?" My dad stepped forward. "We borrowed it. For Vicky's wedding. We'll pay you back." "You borrowed it? You withdrew $45,000 without asking me." "You're on the account," Dad said. Like that justified everything. Technically, it's shared money. That account has been sitting empty for 8 years. I moved that money there for 3 days before a transfer. You knew that wasn't your money. You stole from me. "We didn't steal," Mom insisted. "We borrowed. There's a difference." "Did you ask permission?" Silence. "Did you plan to tell me?" More silence. "Then you stole. You committed theft. Give it back. Right now." "We can't," Dad said. "We already gave it to the wedding planner. Deposits are non-refundable. We'll pay you back after the wedding. We'll work out a payment plan." I actually laughed again. Hysterical this time. "A payment plan? You don't have money for Vicky's wedding, but you're going to have money to pay me back $45,000? How does that math work?" "We'll figure it out," Mom said. "We always do. You'll figure it out with my money. Money I saved. Money I worked for. Money I was going to use to start my business." "The business can wait," Dad said. "Vicky's wedding is in 6 weeks. She needs this money now. You're young. You have time to save again." I stared at him. Really looked at him. Saw him clearly for the first time in my life. He genuinely believed what he was saying. He genuinely thought Vicky's 4th wedding was more important than my entire future. "I want every cent back by the end of the month, or I'm calling the police and reporting this as theft." "You wouldn't," Mom gasped. "Watch me." I left. I didn't even slam the door. I just walked away. For the next 2 weeks, they tried everything. Guilt trips about destroying the family. Threats about cutting me off. Vicky called me sobbing, saying I was ruining her life. My aunt and uncle called, saying I was being unreasonable. Apparently, my parents had told everyone I'd agreed to help and was now backing out. I called a lawyer, explained the situation. She told me I had a case, but it would be messy because of the joint account. Technically, as an authorized user, my mother had legal access to withdraw funds. Fighting it would mean proving theft of specifically designated funds, which is hard when everything's in a joint account. "Your best bet is small claims court," she said. "Sue them for the money. You'll probably win, but even if you do, collecting might be difficult if they don't have assets. They own their house. Is there a mortgage? I don't know. Find out. If there's significant equity, you could potentially force a sale or put a lien on the property. But that's going to destroy your family relationships." They destroyed the relationship when they stole from me. I filed in small claims court for $45,000, plus interest and court costs. The maximum amount for small claims in my state is $25,000, so I had to file in regular civil court, which meant getting a lawyer involved and spending money I didn't have on legal fees. My lawyer cost me $5,000 up front. I paid it by maxing out a credit card because all my liquid cash was gone. I'd had to cancel my business launch. I'd had to tell my would-be employees I couldn't hire them. I'd had to break the lease on my office space and lose my deposit. My anchor clients went with another firm. Everything I'd built toward for years was gone. The lawsuit took 8 months. 8 months of depositions, document requests, and my parents hiring their own lawyer to fight me. They claimed the money was a gift. They claimed I'd verbally agreed to help with the wedding. They claimed I was a vindictive son trying to punish my sister for being happy. Their lawyer was good. Really good. Probably cost them $15,000 they didn't have. I later found out Vicky's fiancé Derek had paid for it, which should have been a red flag about that relationship. But whatever. The judge's ruling came down to one critical issue: the joint account. Because my mother was an authorized user with full withdrawal privileges, the judge couldn't prove theft. I'd never explicitly documented that the money was mine or restricted her access. The fact that the account had been empty for years actually worked against me. The judge said if I didn't want her accessing it, I should have removed her years ago. I lost. I lost everything. The judge did give me a small victory. He ruled that my parents owed me the money as a debt and ordered them to pay it back with interest over 5 years. But without assets to seize, without wages to garnish, they were both retired and living on fixed income. There was no enforcement mechanism. They could just not pay me, and there was nothing I could do about it. My lawyer had warned me this might happen. "Even if you win, collecting is another battle," she'd said. She was right. The legal fees totaled $12,000. I paid every cent on credit cards. My credit score tanked. I couldn't start my business. I couldn't even afford to keep my apartment. I ended up moving into a studio the size of a shoebox and picking up freelance work to stay afloat. Meanwhile, Vicky's wedding happened right on schedule. She posted pictures all over social media. The venue was beautiful. Her dress was stunning. They had a chocolate fountain and a 12-piece band. My $45,000 had paid for every bit of it. I wasn't invited, obviously. The years after the lawsuit were the hardest of my life. I was 33 years old, buried in debt, and watching my sister live her best life on money stolen from me. I worked 3 freelance consulting gigs at once, barely sleeping, eating garbage, and generally existing in a fog of rage and depression. But here's the thing about rock bottom. You can only go up from there. I doubled down on the consulting work. I took every client I could find. I worked 80-hour weeks. I lived like I was in college again, budgeting every dollar, cutting every expense. And slowly, painfully, I started digging myself out. By age 34, I'd paid off half my legal debt. I'd rebuilt my credit enough to rent a better apartment. I'd even started saving again. Not much, but something. And my reputation in the consulting world was growing. Clients referred other clients. I was known as the guy who would work weekends, who would pick up calls at midnight, who would do whatever it took to deliver results. I met someone. Her name's Rachel. She's a project manager at a tech company. She knows my whole story. She knows about Vicky, the weddings, the stolen money, the lawsuit, and she loves me anyway. We're not married. Frankly, I'm still traumatized by the concept of weddings, but we're solid. She's the most stable, drama-free relationship I've ever had. I also went full no contact with my family, blocked them on everything, changed my phone number, moved without telling them my new address, made it very clear to extended family that I wanted zero updates about Vicky, my parents, or anything related to them. For 2 years, that worked perfectly. I rebuilt my life. I started a smaller version of my consulting firm. Just me, operating under an LLC, working from home. It wasn't the dream I'd originally had, but it was mine, and it was growing. Then, about 6 months ago, everything came crashing back down. I found out through my uncle, who I'd stayed in contact with because he was the only family member who'd sided with me during the lawsuit. He called me sounding exhausted. Derek filed for divorce, he said. Vicky's husband? Yeah. Apparently things fell apart pretty quickly after the wedding. Shocking, I deadpanned. What happened? From what I've heard through your mom, Vicky was spending money they didn't have. She was using Derek's credit cards to buy clothes, furniture, take trips. She maxed out 3 cards in the first year. Derek tried to get her to stick to a budget, and she accused him of being controlling. They went to marriage counseling, but Vicky refused to take any responsibility. Derek finally had enough. How much debt are we talking? 70 grand on top of the credit card debt Derek already had. I actually whistled. Jesus, Derek must be destroyed. He is. But here's where it gets worse. Your parents can't afford to help her this time. They're still paying off the lawyer they hired to fight your lawsuit. They took out a home equity loan to cover it, and they're barely making the payments. They tried to ask me for money. Did you give them any? Hell no. I told them they made their bed. Good for you. So what's Vicky doing? Living with your parents, working part-time at Target, crying to everyone who'll listen about how Derek changed after the wedding and became financially abusive for asking her to stop spending $5,000 a month on clothes. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not a bitter laugh this time. A genuine, from-the-belly laugh. The kind of laugh you have when karma delivers exactly what someone deserves. I take it she's not doing well, I said, when I caught my breath. Not even a little bit. She's 35, living with her parents, working retail, buried in debt from her own shopping habits. She's also been posting cryptic things on social media about betrayal and family loyalty. Let me guess, she's been trying to reach out to me. Your mom gave her your new phone number. Of course she did. And right on cue, my phone started buzzing. Unknown number. I ignored it. It called 3 more times. Then came the text messages. Brody, it's Vicky. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I'm in a really bad place right now. Derek left me with so much debt. Mom and Dad can't help me. I have no one. I know things ended badly between us, but you're my brother. Please call me. I need to talk to you. I blocked the number. 2 days later, another number started calling. Then another. She'd gotten Google Voice numbers and was burning through them trying to reach me. The voicemails were predictable. First, they were sad, crying about how hard her life is, how much she's struggling, how she made mistakes but she's learned from them. Then they got angry, accusing me of being heartless, of holding grudges, of being a terrible brother. Then they cycled back to sad. My parents started calling too. I didn't block them because I wanted to hear their pathetic attempts to manipulate me. My mom left a voicemail saying Vicky was going through a really hard time and that I needed to put the past behind us and help her. My dad left one saying that Vicky had apologized for everything and wanted to make amends, and that I was being stubborn by refusing to talk to her. I didn't respond to any of it. It all came to a head 3 weeks ago. I was at a coffee shop working on my laptop when someone sat down across from me. I looked up, and there was Vicky. She looked rough, tired, older than 35, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing a Target vest over a plain t-shirt. "Don't make a scene," she said immediately. "Just hear me out." I closed my laptop. "How did you find me?" "I've been driving around looking for your car for weeks. I finally saw it in the parking lot." "That's called stalking. I'm desperate." Her eyes were red. She'd clearly been crying. "Brody, I'm drowning. The debt is killing me. I can't afford therapy. I can barely afford food. Mom and dad are broke. I have no one else. Not my problem. I know I fucked up. I know the wedding money was supposed to be for your business. I know mom and dad stole from you. I was young and stupid, and I just wanted everything to be perfect." She was starting to cry. People were staring. "You were 32 when you got married to Derek," I said. "That's not young. That's old enough to know better. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She grabbed my hand across the table. "Please, I need help. I need money to pay off these cards, or I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy. My credit is destroyed. I can't even rent an apartment without a cosigner." I pulled my hand away. "Let me get this straight. You want me, the brother you've treated like garbage for 30 years, to give you money to pay off debt you racked up being irresponsible? After you let mom and dad steal $45,000 from me to pay for your fourth wedding that lasted less than 3 years? It wasn't my fault Derek changed. It's never your fault, Vicky. Brad cheated, but you ignored every red flag. Marcus left because you grew apart, which means you got bored. Tyler was a criminal, but you called me jealous when I tried to warn you. And Derek left because you spent money like water and refused to take any responsibility. None of it is ever your fault. It's always something that happened to you. I'm trying to apologize." "No, you're trying to get money. There's a difference." I stood up. "I'm not giving you a cent. Not now, not ever. Figure it out like I had to. Brody, please." I spent 3 years saving $85,000. Every dollar came from sacrifice. And you and mom and dad destroyed it in 6 weeks so you could have another fantasy wedding. You never apologized for that. You never even acknowledged it. But now that Derek's gone and you're broke, suddenly you're sorry? I am sorry. No, you're desperate. If Derek hadn't left you, you'd still be posting pictures on Instagram pretending your life was perfect. You'd still be ignoring my existence. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your bailout. I'm done." I walked out. She followed me to my car, crying, begging, making promises she couldn't keep. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove away. She stood in the parking lot watching me leave. That was 3 weeks ago. She's been calling nonstop since then. So have my parents. They've left dozens of voicemails saying I'm the only one who can help Vicky, that I'm being cruel, that I'm destroying what's left of our family by refusing to step up. My mom left one yesterday that really stuck with me. "I don't know what happened to you. You used to be such a sweet boy. Now you're cold and heartless." I listened to that one 3 times. Each time I felt something different. First, rage, then sadness. Finally, clarity. I recorded a video. Just me, sitting in my home office, speaking directly to the camera. I kept it under 5 minutes. Then I sent it to my parents, Vicky, and my uncle to share with anyone else who wanted to know my side. In the video, I said, "I'm making this once and only once because I'm tired of repeating myself. What happened to me? I grew up being treated like the spare child. I watched Vicky get money, attention, and support for 30 years while I got nothing. When I asked for help, I was told to figure it out myself. So I did. I saved $85,000 through years of sacrifice. I ate ramen. I worked 2 jobs. I drove a falling apart car. I postponed having a life because I was building towards something bigger. And when I was finally ready to launch my business, Mom stole $45,000 to pay for Vicky's 4th wedding. I sued to get my money back. I lost. That lawsuit cost me $12,000 I didn't have. I went into debt. I couldn't start my business. Everything I'd worked for was destroyed. And where was the family support then? Where were the phone calls asking if I was okay? Vicky's now on her 4th divorce. She's broke because she spent money she didn't have and refused to take responsibility. And suddenly, I'm the heartless one for not fixing her problems? Here's what happened to me. I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about respect, support, and basic human decency. And by that definition, you stopped being my family years ago. I rebuilt my life without you. I have a successful consulting business. I have a partner who loves me. I have friends who support me. I did it all on my own because I had to. Vicky, I hope you figure your life out. I genuinely do. But it's not my job to save you. It never was. Mom and Dad, you made your choice every single day of my life. You chose Vicky, and that's fine. But you don't get to come back now that your golden child is struggling and demand I clean up the mess you enabled. To everyone else in the family, this is the last time I'm explaining myself. I'm not the bad guy here. I'm the guy who got tired of being treated like an ATM with no feelings. If that makes me heartless, so be it. Don't contact me again. Any calls, texts, or attempts to reach me will be blocked. If anyone shows up at my home or workplace, I'll get a restraining order. This chapter is closed. I sent the video on a Friday evening. By Monday morning, I'd blocked 17 new numbers. My uncle called to tell me half the family was on my side now. Apparently, some cousins had gone through similar favoritism issues, and the video resonated. My parents haven't reached out since. Neither has Vicky. I don't know if they finally got the message or if they're regrouping for another assault. Honestly, I don't care. I'm 35, running a consulting business that brought in $180,000 last year. I'm debt-free. Rachel and I are looking at houses. I have friends I see regularly. I go to therapy once a month to work through family trauma. I sleep well at night. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.